So, good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us today for the session on how to build successful technology teams and organizations. So, have you always been wondering how to create a successful team and organization? Well, is that something that incites you? So, we are very happy to let you know that we have with that AmiHacks is excited to have Ravi sir, the founder and CEO of RealCoderz, with us, who will be sharing you the insights of how to create a successful technology teams and organizations. Ravi sir brings over an experience of 20 years in education, financial services, and technological industry. With an extensive background in innovation, harnessing young technological talents, and product development, he brings a wealth of experience for innovation, product relation, creation, and technical talent development. So, thank you, Ravi sir, for joining us for this event today. And now I would like Ravi sir to share all his thoughts with us. Over to you, sir, now.
Thank you, Raghav. Can you see my screen well?
No, sir, it is not visible.
It's not? Okay. 1 second. Just let me know when you're able to see the slideshow.
Yes, sir, it is.
It is
It is
visible.
visible, sir.
Visible, sir. Yeah.
One
Yeah.
second. All right. Good morning, everyone. Hope all of you are having a good time, and it's my pleasure to be here. And thank you very much, Raghav and Amit. It's good to talk about and share experience. I've been in the field for some time now, and you'll see I'll go through some of the key learnings I had as I was working in different organizations and also build teams, in my career. So So the reason I chose this topic is this is one of the things which I always find fascinating, that some of the teams work and others do not. And what sort of what is the key? What are the key characteristics which make teams successful? So we'll get into this topic more, but let me give you a little bit of introduction about the RealCoderz first, and then a little bit about myself, and then we will discuss more about what I have found so far, and how the sort of technologies has shaped building the teams and organizations. So first thing, let me talk about RealCoderz. We've started RealCoderz last year in India. And the RealCoderz mission is to develop 360-degree coders using project-based intensive boot camps guided by artificial intelligence, and harness their energy to build industry-leading products and enterprise-grade software for our clients and partners. So that is our primary focus. This is what we do day in, day out. Build a team which is well-rounded, and then prepare them for enterprise level projects, and then work with them on products and projects. So some of the things which we are currently working on, and which are very interesting and fascinating for us, because we found this challenge, right? So that it's very hard to find technical people who can be productive on day one, right? So that was our major theme, that how we can get college graduates and get them ready for enterprise projects right from the day one. So that is the theme behind RealCoderz, and what we are trying to do currently is one of the key product we are building is leverages artificial intelligence, and it identifies computing talents and guides computer engineers to computer or software engineers to become 360-degree coders. So we already released the software, is called RC360. And now we are building on another one, RC Builder, and we will share more details about it as we go forward. And the second thing we are doing is we are doing custom software development. So basically, anyone needs any type of app development work, and which requires enterprise level skill set, then we work on those. And the third is that we are focused on building as I said, 360-degree coders is sort of core of our mission, right? So we're working on, and I'll share more details of what do we mean by 360-degree coders and how they are different from what you are able to see in the industry. So that's about the company. We have, as a management team and overall team, we have over $400 million of US project delivery experience. So we do have experience in this area, and we have worked in several companies in US and India. So that's what gives us some experience and confidence that we'll be able to do these things in India. Next, let me tell you a little bit more about myself. So I have almost 25 years now. I was used to write 20 years, and as I was updating it, I realized I'm getting close to 25 years now. So basically, the two key things which have always sort of fascinated me is building high-performing teams and also working with the latest technologies. And those are the key things for throughout my career. So I started it in Silicon Valley, California, late 1990s. And I worked in startups. So I had a pleasure of working in .com companies and seeing them go bust. One of the one which I worked for called PeopleSoft, it was acquired by PeopleSoft. It was an unsure. So that was the good one, but there were 2-3 which did not survive. So I had a pleasure of seeing that how to basically create an organization, what works and what doesn't work, what are just pure hypes versus how to create product which is meaningful. So that's where my start was. Then I worked in a company called Freddie Mac. I spent most of my career in Freddie Mac. So if you can say I'm Freddie Mac veteran, it's a $1 trillion secondary mortgage organization. It's not a mistake. It is $1 trillion US. It's basically what Freddie Mac does. It takes mortgage off of all the big financial firms like Wells Fargo, Citi Mortgage, all those. Citi and Bank of America, and then securitizes them. And my responsibility there was to basically make sure the mortgage Freddie Mac is buying are meeting the corporate guidelines, and as well as we are able to charge for them accurately. So whatever guarantee fees we had to charge or Freddie Mac had to charge, we're able to do that. So I led that. I became by the time I left, I was a senior director there, and also had a pleasure of building a product which was very fascinating. It's called Sapiens Decision. It's still very viable and very innovative. We had then I basically joined the company which was part of this product, and we implemented at Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, JPMC, and other places. And think of it like, this product helps people in making decisions, business decisions. So based on the guidelines and policies and so on and so forth. So that was with KPI, and it was acquired by Sapiens. Then my last work was with the company called Ravager, where I was managing the technology. And we grew it from roughly $30 million company to over $400 million, and was acquired by a big investment firm. So that's pretty much about me. And the key thing I would like to say here is that because of the experience, I had a pleasure of basically building new teams all the times, and try to figure out what is the sort of the key ingredients which works, and how to leverage technology in building teams. So I like to share my findings with you. So let's go over the agenda quickly. So introduction, I just went through. So what do we mean by successful teams? So I'll spend some time there. Then we'll look at technology and software architecture evolution and impact on teams. So if you think about just the team, there are a lot of things, and there is a lot of literature on that, a lot of academics work. So I'm not going to go there. That's not my area, and I'm not the expert there. What I would talk about is more about what I found was successful. So it's just my experience, and based on the learnings I had on the industry, and what I have seen as a technologist, and where I found success building teams. So I'm going to focus more on my strength. So if there are a few things I would talk about as part of this conversation is what are the different architectures and how they had an impact on building teams, right? So we'll go into monolithic SOA versus microservices, agile Scrum. What do we mean by that? And how it is automatically lends itself in building team. We'll get into DevOps, and then we also talk about that how agile Scrum and DevOps are basically together are the new things. And then looking forward, what do we see going forward? And then I would like to give you some RealCoderz teams example to basically go over that how we have formed the RealCoderz and how the teams we are building, right? So to based on those learnings. So that's the agenda. So let me start with, I've heard that there won't be much question answer, so I'm just going to go ahead. But if there is a mechanism, anyone wants to interrupt and ask me questions, feel free. I have no issues with it, and I actually love to engage rather than talk about a topic continuously, because it gets more entertaining. So so feel free to do that. So let's go into. I'll start with two of my, I would say, leaders who have inspired me around this, and few more are there. I just could not add more, but the quotes from those two is a good start for this presentation. So I'm pretty sure we don't need to get into the details of who they are. And they must be very familiar. You guys must be very familiar with that. So from Steve Jobs, no matter how smart you are, you need a team of great people to build an empire, right? So you can't do it alone. You need a strong team, and you need to find great people to build that team, right? So that's and then second is Elon Musk, right? Has created a lot of buzz around what he's been able to do lately is just amazing. So strong teams won't be told what to do; they work together to figure out what to do. So I really like that. So you're not supposed to tell everything to the strong teams. You're supposed to coach them, guide them to figure it out, right? And my team at RealCoderz would definitely agree with that. I have a tendency to ask them to give them difficult thing and say, figure it out. And they usually come through. So that is very impressive. So these two things, very important. And, that's the inspiration for me, that how these guys have worked and how they built a strong team and gain success. So that's there. Let's look at next one more, getting a little bit more in detail. Again, I am not going to write everything or correct with everything from the literature or academics standpoint. I'm just sharing what really, really is strong I felt which was worked and what are the key ingredients for teams, right? So if you think about it, I like this picture very much. It's actually communicating a lot than it is visible. So I'll go one by one, right? So if you think about someone rowing, right, and the whole team is in sync and everyone is looking at the goal, right? And visualize this, that there is no confusion, there is no challenges, like nothing which they won't see, right? I won't say challenges, nothing they won't see. They are focused and they are going to get there, right? So reason is because of there is a full alignment. So if you look at here, right? So what does successful teams mean? They have a shared vision. They are going somewhere. They need to go there. They have clear goals. They are committed. You see, all of them have at the same level, right? So it's not like one guy is just slacking off, right? All of them are working hard. Effective leadership. The leader is watching and navigating. So leadership is good. They have adequate resources. I'm hoping they can pull off these three can pull it off. They don't need to add more. Mutual trust, and they trust each other. They have atmosphere. They have communicating. I'm pretty sure if it was a reality, they will be shouting. Like if you have seen those races, you will see always the captain encouraging the teams and so on, and they have a good communication. So this is what you can call a very successful team, because everyone is focused. There is no confusion. They are in the same place, and it's just the perfect condition. So this is what you should think of when you are building a team. If you get this, there is nothing you won't be able to achieve, regardless of where you are going. It's very hard to get to that level, right? And we'll talk about as we go forward what sort of work, what did not. But this is what we all are aiming to when we are trying to build teams, right? Let me go to the next one. So qualities of successful team, right? So again, I picked up things which I liked from the images and internet for this presentation, and I'm going to emphasize things which are which I could relate with, right? Which I could make sense of based on my experience and what I've seen in the industry, right? And I had a good seat. Box office seat to see what was going on in the industry, being 25 years in the industry and worked in different firms. So one thing I would say, deep commitment to a common purpose and common goals. This is very, very sort of, I would say, given, right? Every team's definition would start with this, right? And there is no two ways about it. What I liked about this was the next part, hunger for performance. This is the key. If people have to be hungry, I always talk about this with all my teams so far, like you really need to have that drive to be successful. If you don't have a team who's hungry, then it would become, it will start operating like a government office, right? That is the challenge. So that is where you need to make sure there is a hunger and there are both things. Like you're incentivizing people, but you are also monitoring them. This is very, very key. And then second is high performance teams are hot houses of growth, learning, and development. So this is another key part. So there will be growth. You need to be very quick in acknowledging people who are doing well and growing them and giving them atmosphere where they can learn and build, right? So it's very, very important, these two aspects in my view. This is Google's. I found it and I liked a couple of things there, so I'm going to talk about it. This is proven method to build a good team, right? So it's great. Google has a tendency to democratize the teams, and which requires next level of courage. Okay, so they do that. What that means is that they actually take that onus that you should be taking risk. If you are a Googler, then you're supposed to take risk. You're supposed to mess up. You're supposed to, you're tuned into this, because I was in Silicon Valley and few of my friends are there, and we talked about this, so I can relate with some of the items there. And this is one thing which I find very unique. I think every team does that. Successful teams always do that, but they make it their number one. So that is where they are different. And so this piece is unique for me. Rest of the things pretty much line up, but this was just wanted to highlight that for you. The next is, so just to reiterate, what I'm emphasizing is that your failure is not a problem. if you were trying and working hard, and that is good, right? So that would be admired. If you fail, good, but you were trying and you were working hard. Your failure is not because you were not doing anything, right? There's a big difference there. Okay. The next is let's get into how the technologies have sort of influenced the team formation. So I thought about it. What were the sort of key things I have seen in my career where technology was sort of, driving a lot of things. I come from a mainframe era. So you guys probably won't know what mainframe is, but mainframes were the big computer which everyone used at one point. Okay. And they were very monolithic. So I'll get into that a little bit more. But let's start with 2000 because that's a better state than 1990s. So there was one big document which was released in 2001, Agile Manifesto. And that basically documented the principle of how the teams should function. This was in contrast to what was very well known as a waterfall method, right? So where everything was very sequential and there were challenges. If I describe it at very high level, 30,000 foot level, then I would say that you had a different phases of software development life cycle. You had a requirement, then you design, right, and then you do the analysis, development, and then testing, and then deployment, right? And anytime you do anything wrong, you have to restart. If I give you an example of Freddie Mac, when I was there back in 2002, we were using waterfall, and every time our releases were taking 1.5 to 2 years, right? And so every time we do a release, it will be like, multi-million-dollar release, like $30-40 million release at that time. From those dollars, those are not true dollars based on now. It will be way more. And there will be 400-500 people working on those releases, right? Big, huge teams, right? Every time you make a mistake, management was always given this difficult task, either to go ahead with the release, right, with the function they have already built, or stop the release and change course correct. So we had to, a lot of time makes those tough decisions where we had to explain to our clients that we didn't mean it. The new version is going to come. It will fix this, and all that kind of stuff was happening. So these guys got together. Long story short, Agile Manifesto. They put together these things where what should the team has, and that manifesto came in 2001. There was again an introduction of a concept of DevOps, what it is and how it should be, right? Then we saw the adoption of Agile and Scrum around 2008, 2010, 2012, this time. And then there is this book. If you guys, any of you are interested in this space, I would highly recommend this book. There's the Phoenix Project. It's very popular. Most of them, if you are fascinated by it, you should have already read it. But if not, just read it. It's worthwhile. I don't recommend too many books, but this one I do. So this is the Phoenix Project, right? So that book basically explained to all of us the benefit of DevOps, right? So if you do DevOps right, what you're going to gain. And then we saw microservices, which is, I'm going to get into a little bit more details on these technology concepts. The microservices, how they shape teams, right? And then DevOps adoption and how we are now moving towards the concept, which is agile pods, right? So we'll go through these few of these items, especially agile and DevOps and agile pods, and we'll go from there. But these are the sort of major things I would say. Again, years maybe a little bit here and there, and I'm looking at a widespread. When I say adoption, I mean industry adoption. I don't mean the first guy adoption. I mean that 78%, 60-70% of the people know about it and have adopted it. And at enterprise level, not at a startup level, not at a small company level. I'm talking the companies which are doing big businesses. It takes them a lot of effort to shift anything. So to retire a software, to change a process, to do things is a huge task in large organization, right? So I'm talking about that from that standpoint. So these were sort of influencers. Let's look at software architecture and how it sort of lends itself to the team complexity. So we had I've briefly talked about mainframes. So we had a UI, access control, business logic, data layer, and if I remember it correctly, it was, I think, KICS, vSAM, JSAM, or JCL, and DB2. These are the terms, if someone knows mainframe, would relate with. But basically, these were all mainframe things, right? And what was happening was that in this case, your teams will be based on technical functions. So if you are on a data layer, you are a data guy. If you are here, you are a business. You are access control, or UI, right? So you have to build the teams based on the technology or technical skills they had. We're talking only about technical teams. We're talking about how application development and our operations side sort of should form team. So this was the pattern we all were following back in 90s, right? Late 90s. And this was used, so very few people knew exactly that how the transactions get processed. They knew what they needed to do for specific things. So, and anytime there was a defect, the whole thing needed to be changed. So that was the problem with monolithic. We moved to something called very interesting service-oriented architecture, SOA. And what that did is that actually created one layer, right? It created a layer where you can interact with that layer, and that way you only need to know what you need. So basically, hiding all the complexity behind it. So service-oriented was focused more from service standpoint. If you ask me for address, I'll give you address. If you ask me for deduct from my account, I'll deduct from your account. You don't know what you need to do. You just need to call me and I'll take care of your things, right? So that was more service-oriented architecture. So what that led to is that still team complexity was not changed. So if you were here, you felt it was convoluted and without any understanding, this actually did not help much. So we were pretty much at the same level here, and because of everything being intertwined. Maybe some components were refined a little bit better, but overall the teams were very similar to what we had on monolithic. It helped us in scaling the applications, but it did not help much with the team organization. What did help is what we are doing now, which is most of the application architecture is moving towards microservices. This model is helping team creating more like atomic teams, or maybe more smaller teams which can independently operate. And that's the definition of microservices, right? Each of these microservices has to be independent, and you should be able to scale them independently. You should be able to assign to a team independently. So this structure has helped us a lot in sort of forming those teams which are more focused based on the services. So bit about so this is how the architecture has shaped up lately. If you go in, I think this concept I already explained, so maybe I won't go that much into it, but independently, so they are microservices are independent self-contained services which lends themselves well to a team structure rather than SOA, which is intertwined except at the API layer. So this is the only part where it makes little bit easier, but rest of the things are pretty much at the same level in SOA. Here, what you are doing in microservices, all of these are different services. So independently, people can manage them. And this you can give it to your infrastructure person or cloud person who can handle these things. And then you can build services APIs here. One can be authentication, another can be pricing, third can be all those things can be done independently, right? So that's the sort of architecture, how technology architecture is driving team formation, right? So and it has a big role. You cannot simply sort of leave the architecture aside and focus on building the team. You like this person or that person. You have to think about what you're trying to form. So that's what it highlights. Next is let's look at Agile and Scrum, what that does, what it is, and how it helps us build teams. So if you look at Agile, if I give you a 1 minute, 2 minute version of it, so you look at product backlog. So you basically collect all your work which you need to do. You do your planning based on that, right? That what you needs to go first, what you need to will go next, who will, what team will work on it, and what timeline you are expecting. And then you create for a specific sprint what you are going to do, right? Sprint is think of it typically 2 to 4 week sprint, and you are conducting sort of daily Scrum meeting. So I'll get into this side of it a little bit later. But basically, you have a backlog. You complete it in 2 to 4 weeks, and then you have the key is shippable product. What do we call it as? Also call it as a minimal viable product, MVP, right? So MVP is comes out of that each sprint. So expectation on Agile is basically every time you do something, you still are coming back to a workable version, right? If you're not coming back to, if your product does not function at the end of a sprint, you're not following proper Agile, or you better go and fix it right quickly. Very, very important. The second thing, this topic I left a little bit. So let me get into the next slide, and I'll explain more why I'm keeping this a bit separate. So there is an Agile and there is a Scrum. Those two are different things. Agile is a philosophy that this is how we should do. We should do these things. There is a manifesto which outlines those 10, 12 things. Scrum is basically the process and rules which we apply, which leverages Agile's philosophy, but it adds process and rules. So it basically says, if you're doing a Scrum, you better have a stand-up meeting, daily meeting. So that is coming from Scrum, right? You should have a retrospective. So after every sprint, you should check whether you did it right, everything went okay, or were there any challenges. Those are, again, you're coming with so those are the rigor, and your sprint should be always 2 to 4 weeks. All of these things are outlined using something called Scrum. And that's the reason we always refer to it as an Agile Scrum, right? So this is how the Scrum would and it also designate people what role they will be playing. So think of customers and users. You have a product owner, right? Product owner is responsible for interacting with customers and users, getting you all the requirements, what needs to be done. Also responsible for prioritizing the backlog, right? So that's what product owner does. Scrum Master then takes it over and basically focuses on each sprint, that how to deliver the functionality of each sprint. You also have developers who are actually working on the unit of work, what needs to be done, and closely in touch with the Scrum Master and also the product owner. If they need to clarify requirement, go to product owner sometimes, and other times Scrum Master can clarify, or your Scrum Masters are mostly there to facilitate and lead the effort, right? So that's and then you may have a management. So this basically outlines the key sort of people who are part of a technology team, Agile team. So these are the roles, and you look at based on their domain, right? What they have experience in. So if someone is good team player, and good facilitator, and we will, try to tend to give them a Scrum Master role, because it is less about them, it is more about the team, right? So you need to have that focus where you're enabling everyone, right? So that's the role you would give it to Scrum Master. Product owner role, of course, will land automatically, will go to someone who really knows about, who is your sort of, visionary, or looking at someone who is going to come up with all the ideas or collect all the ideas from the industry, right? So that's how product owner is. And that's, I think that's there. And here it explains what I was talking about earlier. What Scrum does is it adds methodology process, and rest is pretty much same. Philosophy is agile, right? So it's a set of rules came from agile, but how to do it, right? How to process it came from Scrum. So that's the reason we refer to it as an agile Scrum. So that's and then if you have a focused agile teams, so you will have, like, let's say there is address services work by this team, pricing services work by this team, AI part is done by this team. So you have focused agile teams. Then each of these teams then have to build, test, and release and do the deployment, right? And that's where it sort of breaks down, right? Because you are able to align this part, but here it becomes a nightmare. So the whole goal of 2 to 4 weeks, taking it to production, is out of the window, because this process, and people who have done this for enterprise level would understand, this takes something to do, right? This is multiple teams, multiple skills, and multiple people trying to get something done. So this was a big challenge back in, I would say, 2010, 12, 14, 15. Lately, we as an industry found a solution, and that's what sort of, I think helped overall philosophy on agile. So I'll get into that. So that is the solution we found is the DevOps. So development and operation, how to manage them, how to do it efficiently, is basically leveraging DevOps. So it's a software development process and tools allows teams, right, to deliver things in faster. So first thing DevOps is focused on, doing things faster. Long back means 15 years back, roughly, there was a dev group and there was an ops group. So dev group will finish things, pass it over to ops. And this, I have lived through it and had a lot of stories around it. If there is any question around it, let me know how specific things work. But basically, dev will finish it. They will spend their 6 months, 1 year, and they will finish something, give it to ops, realize, and the ops will take it. Again, there will be big knowledge transfer, sharing sessions, thousands of those, and then they will try to make it work. And of course, it worked on developer machine, it did not work on the ops side. So then those cycles will start. So another 6 months to figure out what needs to be done, right? So that's was dev and ops were operating. What DevOps did is basically it automated the whole cycle. So if you build in dev and you apply the right tools, you follow the right process, you can build it at the same time, right? Build, test, deploy at the same time. So what we're talking about is automating whole lot of development process. And that is where the real value came in, where we are able to really do releases or sprints in 2 to 4 weeks. So let's look at. I was thinking about it, and this is what I feel. I just wrote it here: is that DevOps actually made Agile Scrum practical, right? So I was thinking about it. It was Agile Scrum for us was not practical at all. till DevOps made it happen. So now everything makes more sense, right? And I've lived through different phases. This is the key, right? Which made agile, and all these are sort of it's like humans, our life cycle. Everything is incremental, but it reaches certain stage, and then suddenly we see tremendous gain, right? So you keep building small things over time, and suddenly you get something which takes you sort of has a multiplier effect. And that's what I saw here. Is that the whole industry now are able to actually do 2 to 4 week sprints. Some of the steps, some of these stats, if you see on DevOps, is basically mind-boggling. You can use that word there. What we are able to do. Amazon does thousands of deployments a day. In a day, they are able to change their software thousands of times. Netflix does hundreds of times. Google does hundreds of times. So they have multiple teams working, and because of this magic, they are able to do their code, build their code, and take it to production. Now, since these teams are leveraging a lot of tools, right? So coming back to our sort of topic of this conversation, using a lot of tools, things can be done with very few resources, and those resources can potentially be integrated in your agile Scrum process, right? So I'll get into more. So that's the key theme here. But DevOps again, right? So you're doing all of these things. So you code, you plan, you code, you build, test, you release it, you deploy it, you operate it, then you monitor it, then you plan it. So this is the whole cycle. Continuous integration, continuous delivery. Every time there is a commit, you can set up jobs which will automatically take anyone commits the code on Git, the whole process starts and gets deployed in production. So that's the beauty of this, right? Let's see. So this is just to explain to you that how the pipelines are, and this is basically, I'll touch on it because our focus is on teams more, but this will help you understand why I'm saying that this was very key for us to achieve those smaller teams who are able to focus and deliver on 2 to 4 week sprints and deliver on time. So you think about it: version control, build, unit, deploy to test, auto test, and then you go to production, you validate, and this is continuous. It's basically the pipeline. Pipeline is nothing but sequence of things we do when we are building when we are deploying, testing, deploying, and releasing the code to production. So a little bit more on that. There is one slide where I had 1,000 tools, but I tried to find something which has a little bit less tools. But each and everything requires different tools. This topic is not here to get into the details, so I'm going to stay away. But think of it that a lot of these tools and applications are making DevOps happen, right? So they are the ones who are sort of helping us out and taking care of it, taking care of testing, releasing, building, and deploying. To different servers, different environments, different clusters, different images. Means you can configure anything on the cloud using scripts. So that's how simple it has gotten. Simple and complex at the same time. But this is you can these things help you to scale up, scale down. These things will help you with microservices. Can make life of sort of the infrastructure engineers and system engineers and deployers comparatively very easy, and you can monitor everything as it progresses. So this is the key piece we are coming down to: Agile, Scrum plus DevOps, right? So what are those? How these things are working in conjunction? I think I have covered most of it. I'll go on to a couple of key points, and then we should be good with this topic as well. So what is the important part here? What is Agile DevOps is doing, right? So I would just highlight that DevOps teams are now part of Agile team itself, right? So they need to be brought in. They need to adopt integrating DevOps while handling a sprint. So they need to basically be aware of what is going to happen next when it is coming up. So anytime there is a daily stand-up meetings, everything DevOps resources should be part of your Agile team itself. Automation is what made it all happen. So all developers need to be aware of this. It's a very key part here is people still try to treat it differently. Like, dev is different than ops side of it. We are into getting into the time where they are not different. You have to treat them same, right? And they are basically, you should be able to interchange, move resources between the DevOps side to the dev side. And that's one of the reason RealCoderz focuses more on what we call 360-degree coders. I'll get into that in a little bit. So those are the couple of key learnings here. But here, this slide explains it well. So here you have agile development. You're focused on iterative development, Scrum, sprint, stories, and velocities. You have business guys who are focused on this side. This should be familiar to you. So there are business users, there are developers, and there are IT operations, right? Now we are talking about building agile teams with all three of these participants. Very, very important, right? Business, developers, and IT operations. They are part of the same team. They work together to make your sprint and everything successful. And so that's the key here. We have covered rest of the topics. So just to capture part of it, and then I have this slide again when I sort of wrap up things. But think of it this way, that you started with monolithic applications, component-based, you went to SOA, and then you have a DevOps plus microservices from the technology standpoint. Then the team formation was based on technical functions, business functions, agile scrums, and now you have a agile scrum plus DevOps. And these were the rough timelines when we did as an industry, right? So here's, I'm looking at wide adoption again, not when they first came out. So this is how the things have evolved. And it is crucial that you know these things as you are building up your teams, right? Technology teams, dev teams, and operations teams. So next, agile pods. So this is recent concept comparatively, and we have adopted it at RealCoderz and in my previous company. There's this very important concept, so I'll get into that a little bit here. So think of same thing what we said earlier, plus add this part, right? So it's not a new stuff, it's just the addition that when you're forming a team, look for complementary skills, right? Working with a shared purpose to complete a portion of large project or campaign. Try to make them independent, right? So two things, complementary skills, not supplementary, complementary skills, and try to make decisions and give them, empower them to make the decisions, right? Those are the two key things. And what pods need to, so first is when you create a pod, establish the goal, assign a leader that who should be handling it, assemble a team based on strength, what you like, typically 2 to 8 people, define roles and responsibility, and then you can initiate pod. You can say, okay, go ahead, guys. These are the timelines. Go figure out, get it done, right? So this is what we are working with, and this is what I think industry is moving towards, and this is something you should look at because it just adds these couple of things to what we talked about earlier and makes your team more structured, and potentially you will get more results because that's what Google, HubSpot has told us already, right? So they have found success using these agile pods. And I also strongly believe in it. And a lot of people in industry I know are, I think if I remember, a couple of Indian consulting firms are very much into it. So this is good. This is definitely something you should look at. Again, the key benefits of agile pods are employee empowerment. As I said, like teams are independent, they are making the decisions, they are more efficient, right? They collaborate well because they are smaller teams, communication is good, they are accountable. So, when you are given, when you are empowered, then accountability comes with it, right? So the key part is that the accountability, that they are accountable, and innovation, they are going to be basically innovating. They can innovate as they're free to take those risks, right? Very important. The first thing we talked about earlier. So they can innovate. So that's a key part. This slide I picked up from the internet. There is a key part I liked here is that you are getting this when you are looking at parts. You see speed, you should see quality, you should see innovation, you should see autonomy. So a few things here, right? So we're talking about Agile Scrum plus DevOps, right? So we're not losing DevOps out. Agile Scrum plus DevOps, and then we are layering the pod structure on that, right? So that's what we are talking about here. So again, in pod, this is another key concept, right? So I'll touch on this. You can have a pods where there are some extended pod members. What does that mean? They're not part of the core pod. What they are going to leave their sort of consulting service when it is necessary. So let's say architect, you don't want it in every pod probably. You don't want someone who is the expert on infrastructure everywhere. So those are the key things, right? So that's how it is managed. Now, I'll get into RealCoderz quickly and explain where we are with the team so you can relate with some of the sort of, concept to implementation. We are big on at RealCoderz on this, that we, as part of our philosophy, that you need to sort of, implement the concept, get into the examples and do more project work and things to really gain understanding of the concepts. So, by the way, I forgot to mention, I had in mind earlier that two of MIT's smart resources are with us. So we are very glad to have them on our team. So teams examples. RC platform services. So basically, this is our platform which powers everything under for all the products and all the things we are doing, right? So just focus on this part, the black. I just painted it black before this. These are the DevOps tools we are using, right? So GitHub we use, Jenkins we are using, Selenium. We are almost there. We're working through finishing last piece of things to implement it. But these are the tools we are looking to use or we have used as part of our DevOps. And this is what helps us scale. So it's very, very important for us to leverage all these tools to gain that efficiency, what I was talking about earlier. So this is, if you're thinking DevOps, you're thinking these tools, you're thinking automation, and you're combining that with your Agile and Scrum teams, right? The next is the team members. For us, these are sort of the most important thing is our 360-degree coders, right? Because everything runs because of that, right? And we are looking to we invest sort of, as a company, we invest in them to see how we can get them fully well-trained so they can handle anything. So these are the things we look at. We look at technology, right, which has to be latest and the best out there. So we settled on Java, Spring Boot, Carbon 8, React.js, and we picked up the environment. We looked at, we took Google Cloud, DevOps, Docker, Kubernetes. So that's our environment. During their certification program, they work on 5 projects. development projects. So it's very crucial that people really need to know each and everything well before they can start contributing to the products. So personality development is another key part. I strongly believe that they should be able to communicate with each other. They should be, feel confident about representing their point of view. Very, very important. So there are, discussions, presentations every week. People have to get in front of experts and defend their thought process. So gets very interesting. Then performance monitoring, we look at AI-based, how we can guide them. So we're building this piece where based on where everyone is, we are able to guide them that you should do these things and this. So basically they are part of, in the certification exam base, they are part of the sort of our agile parts, right? So they are key part of all our agile parts. So we look at these characteristics. I was thinking about it, and these are the key things where hungry, passionate, in love with technology, driven, curious, can-do attitude. These are the key ingredients, like what we look for. And then let me get into RC360 Agile Pod. So this is our product, as I mentioned, I think on the first or second slide, that this is helps us basically evaluate and assess a candidate using artificial intelligence, and then benchmark and certify them, and do quite a few other things. So this is our Agile Pod. This is how it is structured. We have a product owner, right, who is looking at the prioritizing backlog and requirement. And then we have a Scrum Master, BA, who is looking at building user stories, clarifying requirements, facilitating release and sprints, right? And we have leads, right, who are helping the dev team anytime. This is where I say extended team falls into. So you can call them leads, or you can call them extended, and we call them leads because they're spread in multiple places, and they conduct knowledge sharing session, and they look at towards the end that everything is okay before it gets to the production. So that's a lead's responsibility. Dev pairs, again, we are talking about complementary skills, very, very important. 360-degree coders, very important. As we talk through, all of those qualities have to be there. Their responsibility is prototype and confirm requirements and develop, test, and request match, right? So they go through this process. So that's the Agile Pod and in RealCoderz. And we have a consulting practice where we do same Agile Pods. We look at into three categories. These are our typical small, medium, and large. We have team members. We have one Scrum Master and lead with 2-3 developers. When you have a medium, you're looking at 5 to 8, one Scrum Master, one lead, 3 to 5 developers. And then you have a large, and these are the numbers for that. And then product owner role is typically filled by client or shared. So this is a consulting practice. So this is where people come in and say, like, we are working on this project. We need your resources. We need a pod, right? And so we will align the resources, create a pod for them, and assign it to them. And this is how product owner role then is typically done by the client, because they know the requirements, what they are going to do. They're going to be part of our Agile Scrum team, but they will be handling that. So this is the example, one of the other example of RealCoderz, how they are implementing it. So if I have to summarize, I think I have 1 or 2 minutes left. So I just quickly would summarize this. So technology architecture, right? So we talked about this. Monolithic, component-based, SOA, service-oriented architecture, microservices, then DevOps plus microservices, right? So this is where we are. Looking at technical functions, business functions, then we get into Agile Scrum plus DevOps, and then you have Agile Pods, right? And these were the timelines. So this basically how the architecture has evolved, how the team formation philosophy has evolved. And of course, you need a strong team members. So, think more like 360-degree coders. You can call them other things or whatever name is right for you. but you need that strong people who are cross-functional and can handle a lot of things. So they not only dev, they are also looking at ops. They should be able to handle front end, back end, middle tier, all of those things. That's very, very crucial. And rest of the things, like, you need a strong product owner, you need a strong scrum master, and to facilitate the sort of agile pods. So that's pretty much from my side, and thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed the session.
Thank you, sir. It was really an amazing session. Even the people in the chat really liked the explanation, and they really appreciate. They are saying this was an amazing session, very nice explanation and all. So thank you so much, sir, for such an explanation.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure speaking with all of you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you,
And
sir.
I really feel like it was a lot of knowledge sharing with us, and we sincerely are looking for a long term relationship, corporate relationship with RealCoderz. And definitely, sir, we will invite you for many such innovative talks, sir, in future also. Thank you, sir, for spending time.
Thank you very much. Have a good one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for sparing your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Bye bye.